Sometimes in geopolitics, just one single event can flip the entire global landscape on its head. And in the last 24 hours, the Middle East has experienced exactly that. An event so seismic, it has completely changed the definition of power, peace, and conflict in the region. So let's break down what just happened, and more importantly, what it means for all of us.
You know that old saying, there are decades where nothing happens and there are weeks where decades happen? Well, for Iran, it feels like 40 years of history have just been rewritten in a single day. The news is now confirmed. Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is dead.
So the big question is, what does this all mean? We're going to break it down by tackling 5 key questions. First, what exactly was this decisive strike? Second, who was this man who for so long was Iran? Third, is the regime now leaderless? Fourth, what's next? Peace, war, or total collapse? And finally, what does this mean for the new world order?
Okay, first things first. Let's get into the tactical details of the strike itself. I mean, how did a leader who seemed completely untouchable for nearly 4 decades just suddenly get taken off the board?
It all went down with just breathtaking speed. On February 28th, a coordinated aerial strike was launched by the US and Israel. But this time, the goal wasn't nuclear sites. It was a direct hit on Iran's top political and military command. The first big clue was Iran's immediate, furious retaliation against US bases. That's how you know a major figure was struck. Then came a very cryptic tweet from the US president, and finally, the official confirmation from Iranian state media.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. You've got 2 completely different stories being told. Iranian state media is pushing this narrative of a martyr, claiming he was killed in his office just carrying out his duties. But the evidence on the ground, it paints a very, very different picture. Satellite imagery clearly shows the use of bunker-busting bombs. That tells you he wasn't in some office. He was tracked to a heavily fortified, hidden bunker and then eliminated with incredible precision.
And make no mistake, this wasn't just about taking out one guy. This was a full-on decapitation strike. Alongside Khamenei, we have confirmation on the deaths of the head of the powerful Revolutionary Guards, the defense minister, and the secretary of the Defense Council. In a single night, the regime's entire security apparatus was just shattered.
But, this wasn't just any leader. To really get the impact here, you have to understand the man who, for so many people, for an entire generation, was Iran. 37 years. Just let that number sink in for a moment. That's how long Khamenei ruled with absolute dictatorial control. He watched American presidents come and go, from Bush to Trump, and all the while he maintained his iron grip on the nation. He was the master architect of the modern Iranian state. He meticulously built a system where the military, the courts, and especially the Revolutionary Guards were all personally loyal to him. He used this potent mix of religious doctrine and just outright brutality to create what was basically a theocratic, absolute monarchy. And he crushed any and all popular dissent, most famously the huge protests in 2022 and again in 2026. And this slide right here perfectly sums up his legacy. While Iranian state TV is showing these images of massive public mourning, international media is flooded with reports of people literally celebrating in the streets. These totally conflicting reports tell you a simple truth. He had become a deeply unpopular and divisive figure in his own country. So this brings us to the most urgent question of all. With the head of the snake cut off, is the threat from Iran truly over? It's so tempting to think, yep, that's it. The regime has been neutralized. But honestly, anyone who thinks Iran is now some paper tiger is making a huge, huge mistake. The regime is wounded, it's desperate, and it's still incredibly dangerous. For starters, Iran still has an arsenal of over 2,000 sophisticated ballistic missiles, and many of these are supersonic, capable of overwhelming even the most advanced defense systems, putting every capital in the region, including Tel Aviv, at risk. And its reach isn't just limited to the air. At sea, Iran has up to 6,000 naval mines just ready to be deployed. Now, why does that matter? Because with those mines, Iran can choke the Strait of Hormuz, cutting off nearly 20% of the world's entire supply of oil and natural gas. Their ability to cause global chaos is very, very much intact. So, what about who's in charge now? Well, a constitutional council is designed to take over temporarily, and Khamenei himself had already identified several potential successors, including top judges and even his own son, Mojtaba. But, and this is a huge but, here's the wild card. Khamenei knew he was a target. He basically created a doomsday switch,
a small, loyal group of generals who were pre-authorized to act independently if he was gone. They have the power to launch a full-scale retaliation without waiting for orders from any new government. All of this leads us right to the heart of the uncertainty. Iran is now standing at a major crossroads, with three very different and very dangerous paths ahead of it. The best case scenario, if you're thinking about stability, is a smooth transition of power. A new supreme leader is chosen, and the shadow war with the West pretty much continues as before. A much more dangerous path is an escalation, where a hardliner takes over, someone bent on revenge. And then there's the doomsday scenario. The state completely fractures, and you're looking at a Syrian-style civil war that could destabilize the entire region. All right, let's zoom out for a second, because this assassination, it isn't just about Iran, not by a long shot. This is about the very rules that have governed the world for decades. And this is the key point. The thing that makes this so significant on a global scale, it was a unilateral action. It was carried out without UN approval, without an international coalition, and without even consulting the US Congress. This sets an unbelievable precedent. It effectively tears up the established rulebook of international relations. So what kind of message does this send to other countries? Just look at this chart. It's chilling. For decades, the world's major powers have told other nations, abandon your nuclear ambitions and we'll give you security guarantees. But the reality is stark. Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and now Ali Khamenei, all without nuclear weapons, all removed from power. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un has nukes and he remains untouched. The lesson here is unmistakable. Only nuclear weapons can truly guarantee a leader's survival. The fallout from this is just massive. You could argue it's a green light for other powers, like China, to act aggressively towards Taiwan, knowing that the international community is basically powerless to stop them. It signals the collapse of the rules-based order and the dawn of an era where might makes right. For countries all over the world, the message is brutally simple. Align with a major power, or you could be next. Which brings us to our final lingering question. There's no doubt that Iran has been dealt a staggering blow with the loss of its leader. But in achieving that short-term victory, has the world just traded a regional threat for global instability? The answer to that question is going to define the decade to come.